All right, it's 9:05, so let's just get started. So to preface this, this is a CNCF event. Please follow the code of conduct, and we'll be recording and posting it to the Days Labs YouTube channel. So if you don't consent, please hop off. So I'll be moderating today for the first time, so bear with me. Audie will be on notes, and then Harrison's gonna help out with the issue triage at the end. So I guess the first thing on the agenda that I want to talk about is that Audie and I submitted our KubeCon CFP for Europe 2023 with help from Kate, of course, who gave us good feedback. So I'm just going to link it here. Audie, I just have our shared HackMD notes. Maybe we can move it over to like an Akri HackMD thing later on, but
yeah, I can go ahead and move it.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just be talking about integrating Kubernetes secrets and secret stores with Akri so that users can securely connect to their devices and attest their identities. So the solution is in the works right now. Audie, maybe you can talk more about this, but basically, I think what we'll be doing is we'll be changing the Akri configuration CRD, right? So we'll be having the Akri agent retrieve the secrets and basically pass it over to the discovery handler so that any discovery handler can sort of ingest these credentials and authenticate their devices.
Yeah, so I can kind of go a little bit more in detail on it. Originally, when we wrote the CFP, we were talking about adding just the CSI driver and getting secrets into Akri. I think we recently had a change with the last release that allowed brokers to get environment variables and pull config maps and Kubernetes secrets. But then we sort of extended that thought and thought about what if we want the discovery handler to authenticate before we even pass anything down to the broker, where the discovery handler itself will be able to decide whether or not this device is real or fake, and then pass that to the agent again so it can make the instance and then move on. So when we were thinking of that, we thought one of the best ways we could do this was in the config itself that the operator passes in. If they choose to add this sort of like, token or something to say, this Kubernetes secret actually attaches to this device or these class of devices. When we discover that device, we can test using that like authentication mechanism, which the discovery handlers will have to make changes for. And then if that test is okay, or if they are able to connect, then the instance of that sensor can be projected into the cluster. So we can make that Akri instance and move from there. That was sort of like the gist of the design. I think we're still working on like getting the like generic details more out there, but that's something that we're like actively working on right now.
So does that look like an operator comes in and creates a Kubernetes secret for every single device? And then how is that mapped to the specific broker?
So,
or how is that passed to the discovery handler, I guess?
From the operator's perspective, they would essentially make a secret per device, and they'd say this device has 50, let's say username password. I think OnVIF uses that, so we could use that. It would say this username, which corresponds to this Kubernetes secret, and then this password, which corresponds to this other secret, would go through. And then the agent itself, since it has API access, could either pick it up from the etcd, basically. It would pick it up from there, and then it would have that ready. As part of the discovery detail, we'd have to make a change for that to add like an extra struct to say, this is the extra details we're passing in to the discovery handler. So when the agent provisions the discovery handler, we'd send more discovery details in. As the discovery handler like looks and finds the device, on the request that it passes back, we would just add that same thing saying this is like the token that you need to connect to the device, whether it's the username, password, or anything. That would again be held in the Akri instance. And then from the instance, when we provision the broker, we would say this is like the environment variable for the username or password. A lot of the actual like implementation of the authentication there would probably be like a template within the discovery handler that we would provide saying, this is exactly how it should look like, or this is very like a broad structure, but I don't think we would enforce anything beyond the discovery handlers themselves. Like anyone writing the discovery handler would have to be the ones that would be modifying and making sure that the authentication works.
So I think my number one concern here is passing around a credential like that. So you should never store secrets in etcd. I don't know if you were referencing storing like an ID that will then be used to reach out to a KMS or so basically the identifier of the device will be passed around, and then both the broker, the discovery handler, and the agent all know which like device registry to reach out to. Is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, the actual secrets we may not have to pass around, but they would have access to the secret essentially. They would have to pull it from the upstream KMS through there was like the SIG-auth CSI driver that we saw, or through some other way, or if they just want to use the native Kubernetes secret, that's fine. And then we wanted to show like a demo where we could basically do that entire end-to-end, like a small prototype, I guess, and see if we could get that done.
Cool. That sounds awesome. At the last CNCF IT Edge working group, Drogue Cloud presented, and one of their developers is one of the co-chairs, so we hear about it a fair bit. And it's been interesting to watch kind of the evolution of the project. And it is like an end-to-end IoT solution for Kubernetes. So solving similar problems. But in a way, what Akri does is different. What Akri does is makes it so that you have devices represented as resources. That's the key thing it does. What Drogue does is it basically makes these APIs so that for each class of device, you can hit that Drogue broker and talk to it that way. But it also has a full integrated key management system and on top of Kubernetes. So they basically have solved this problem entirely of how do I, for each unique device, get a credential and give it to the appropriate workload. That's an exact answer they've provided, and it's all open source. They have, and they use Kubernetes solutions for it. So I would highly recommend looking at that. If you want to partner with them, I can put you in touch with those engineers as well for doing maybe even an integration. So maybe the answer is we don't make something ourselves, instead you integrate with the Drogue sub project that does that. Yeah, that's something that came up that seemed very applicable to the work.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be something I'm interested in. Could you link us the? Oh, okay, perfect. Thanks. I just saw the link. I'll reach out if we want to partner or anything. That's definitely really useful. Thanks.
Yeah, it's really cool. And Drogue, just as a side note, they're really doing every level. So the project actually started with being a project about writing firmware for IoT devices in Rust. So they go all the way from like, here's how you can provision the firmware for your device, all the way to like, this is it in Kubernetes, and you don't have to use all the parts. It's really modular, which is why we could just maybe use the way they use their credential solution, or at least learn from it or reach out to them.
Definitely. Thanks.
Yeah, that sounds good. And yeah, we'll keep everyone updated on the progress as we make on this. Okay, so I'm just gonna go down the discussion items list. So the next thing I see is define boundaries between discovery handler and Akri. So I think this is talking about making breaking changes on the discovery handler. Is that right, Audie? So how do we want to like handle that in the future? Like, are we going to decouple the two?
So for a bit of context, I think we were talking about there was a really a nice change that we had in I think it was ONBIF or OPC-UA discovery handler. And we decided that it would cause a breaking change, but then we basically bumped it up. And then we also started noticing a lot as we were working on discovery handlers that we are pairing Akri and the discovery handlers like all one-to-one. And if we wanted to do discovery handlers, like a different new discovery handler, like how would we go about that? So I think it was essentially just seeing, should we consider breaking changes as a breaking change in Akri or just in the discovery handler in both? But that's not, yeah, it was just like a really quick topic that I thought we could discuss.
Yeah, I see this topic as being the general topic of what is Akri core versus what is Akri add-on or accessory. And so the categories of this are discovery handlers, brokers, samples. And we've talked a lot about should we leave the mono repo approach we have currently. And that can potentially be a completely different discussion. But yeah, along with the idea of this was, yeah, we have a versioning system. Does all of those Akri core and accessories, do those all need to be versioned the same? Right now we do it for simplicity, but I think that's an interesting discussion, and especially on the discovery handler and broker side. So the problem in part with not using one versioning system is we will then need to somehow track certain things, such as if the discovery handlers have a different version than Akri core, we'll need to track kind of what version maps to what capabilities. And that can get a little bit of a headache. So if we started doing discovery handlers on version 1.2, the on discovery handlers version 1.2, which maps to this API, discovery handler API, which maps to this version of Akri, I think that could get a bit of a headache. So my instinct is to still stick with one versioning system, but to have it better documented is one thought around it. I'm curious what other folks what they've seen in other projects around versioning systems for various projects.
I think that makes sense for us because we don't want to have a version of Akri with like more capabilities, but then the discovery handler not targeting that. I guess there's like no one good solution, but there's a that like seems to make sense to me. I guess if we have like breaking changes in discovery handlers, or if someone, we haven't had this yet, but if someone is making discovery handlers, or if someone is if we want to like update older discovery handlers, like I think UDEV or something, would we break changes for Akri for that? Is the only like thing that I'm thinking about. Like, should that constitute as like a change in Akri? That's the only like, I guess, downside I see. But other than that, it seems okay.
Yeah, and we could do something along the lines of, so right now we never use our major version. That is not because we're not 1.0 until we're considered stable, which is a whole different conversation. But so a breaking change always bumps the minor version of Akri. And so that I guess another way to summarize that question is if the UDEV discovery handler changes in a way that is a breaking change, which I would define as when you deploy it, it discovers different devices, or then does that bump Akri to 0.9? Or do we say that bumps Akri to 0.8 point next patch because it's not breaking Akri core? Yeah, I think that's definitely a tricky one. And in part is if we imagine a world where discovery handlers are truly that extensibility model, where anyone can create a custom discovery handler and apply it to Akri. Say they own their own discovery handler and they're versioning their own discovery handler. They're having to maintain that mental model of this discovery handler maps to this version of Akri. So maybe having something in-house that does that for you is a benefit. So having metadata in a discovery handler pod that says it works with this this version of Akri or something along those lines may be something we want. I think at least what should come out of this is we should put up a GitHub issue around this to have a discussion with that scenario of like, UDev breaking change, what happens?
By GitHub issue as in like one of like the docs that we wrote, or like just like an issue that we have saying every time we have a breaking change, we just publish that?
A GitHub issue as in just like create an issue on Akri's repo that says, what do we do about discovery handler breaking changes? I'm happy to put that to do on me. Maybe we can, I'll just put that down. Okay.
All right, cool. Yeah, and then we can follow up on that issue later. Okay, is there anything else that anyone wants to add on this topic? Okay, then I'm gonna go ahead and go on our next agenda item, which is sort of following up on the issues we talked about from the previous meeting about having some OKRs for conferences. So I'm just gonna share my screen. Oh, do you think you could enable screen sharing, Kate?
I think I can enable that for you.
Okay.
Give me a quick second. Cool. Let me know if you're able to screen share now.
Yes, thank you. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first, we have like 6 issues here. So this is the first one, enabling mounting connectivity information for multiple devices or instances in a pod. I see that Harrison has been assigned to this. Do you have any updates on this one?
Yeah, I was looking into this one, and I guess I just have like a general question because I saw Kate suggested to, if you scroll down, she suggested to use the device specific hash as the solution, but I was looking at it, the required change is in the discovery handler, but the instance and the hash is created inside the agent. So I wasn't sure how we can retrieve the hash in that state. If you have any thoughts on that.
I'm gonna need a second to jog my memory on it. 1 second. So it doesn't need, I think, I mean, I'm pre-jogged communicating, but I don't think when I said that I meant they need to be the same. Ideally, they would be the same hash, but they could also be somehow different. But mappable to a similar thing. Where is wrong? Issue number 5. Which one?
It's 492.
492. Okay. 1 second. Okay, so you're concerned, Harrison, about the instance hash being created in the agent.
Yeah, and
yeah, I think my thought around this was changing that. So instead of the instance hash being created in the agent, the discovery handler could create it and tell the agent what
and then
it
just
is.
pass in the hash as the ID into.
Also, the instance hash isn't created in the agent. Well, it is, but the way that it works is the agent takes the property field of the device response and then performs a hash algorithm on it. I think it's a Blake, and depending on whether it's shared or unshared. So that logic could just be reversed by a broker, or well, we could have the discovery handler do that instead. Essentially just move that to the discovery handler and have the discovery handler be in charge of coming up with a unique name. Or there might be a different way of identifying per device. That was just kind of a first thought, but yeah, you're right in that we would need to have the discovery handler make the ID instead of the agent.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. I just wasn't sure if the discovery handler knows if the device is shared or not. I'm not quite sure on that, but I can look into that too.
I think that is a really good follow-up, and I think it probably does not. So that would be something we would need to either communicate as well to the discovery handler. Or do something else around it. But yeah, that's a good point. What did Brian comment? We might just add a normalized instance name. Harrison, do you have an idea of what Brian means there?
My first thought would just be like adding the instance, like adding the ID, like appending the ID to the name. But for example, for OPC, it would be like the URL, but I think it might be kind of long for the name.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait. 1 second. I don't think the discovery handler needs to do anything here, actually. So the way these environmental variables get set is by the agent. So what happens is when a container wants to use a device, it calls allocate on the Akri agent, the device plugin created in the agent. And during that allocate call, what the agent does is it based on what devices are requested for that container, it goes and looks at an instance map that we have and then sets the environment variable then. So, and it's saying is that environment variable name, which is right now a constant across all instances. So onVIF address is value from that map. Instead, we can just say environment variable name append instance idea is value from that map. I believe it's all done in the agent. I don't think it needs to be involve the discovery handler, if I'm remembering correctly. Does that make any sense? Let me see if I can pull up the code.
So you're saying the change or the code inside discovery handler doesn't need to be changed, like the property stop insert, because that's not the only time that we populate the properties, or
the environment I'm saying the discovery handler doesn't need to be involved. Yes, I'm saying it shouldn't need to change because of this, because it's not setting the environment variable. It's just telling the Akri agent what this device's ID is. And then the Akri agent handles that when that device is meant to be used. Give me a second, I'll try and find the code. It sounds like we can maybe take this offline too, if we want to move on, but the general idea of the question here is how do we do this, or how would we do the idea that I'm proposing? So I'll put a little bit more thought into this, Harrison. You linked me back and I'll think a bit about it. But I think this also is a proposal to think about other ways to do this too. So kind of think from a clean slate, how do we go about mapping multiple devices in a broker? And is that environment variables? Is there a better way we need to be thinking about this and kind of think outside the box as well?
Yep, that sounds good to me.
All right. Let's go to the next one. So this one, Harrison, thank you for updating the demo. So we were able to close this, and I've just made a few more minor edits in the docs. But yeah, that should be finalized soon. Then this one, allow for UDev rules without dev node. I don't see anyone assigned on this. Kate, do you know if there's any updates? I guess we're waiting on.
I believe that one should have been closed out. Let me see. I think that one was merged. The related PR. Mount UDev DevPath and Akri brokers. Oh, we never merged that. Okay, well, I think we should merge that. I guess I just assumed we merged it. I think we held off because of the versioning question. Cool. Well, then I'll rebase and merge that, if that sounds good.
And then this next one is reduce the size of Akri's containers. Audie, do you have an update on this?
I'll try to get this out this week, I think, or early next week. I added this and I just haven't gotten time after the CFP, but I should prioritize higher. So I'll make sure I get this out of the way by early next week.
Awesome. Thank you. And then enable UDev discovery handler to discover multiple node devices. I don't see anyone signed on this. Should we assign someone right now, or should we keep it on the back burner?
I'll give background right now about it. So with UDev, we made an assumption that a device is represented by a single device node or device path. That's not the truth of it. So if you were to plug in a nice USB camera, likely that camera takes up multiple nodes. So Only one node will have the capture capability. However, the other two may have, or one or two may have some other metadata or provide some like ancillary information or services for the camera. Sound devices also are a larger set of nodes. So that was something that we've constantly had issues around, especially with our camera demo. Is with the USB camera demo, people will plug in a camera that takes up multiple nodes. And we add more filters currently, but what that means right now is that you're only getting the information on that one device node. A prerequisite of this is supporting multiple instances, or no, actually, never mind. Yeah, I've looked into it a little. I don't have the time to take it on, but I'm happy to help people with it. And I can maybe provide some more context for it. I think I looked into it recently. Yeah, I didn't update it with any information.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if this is something that a lot of people are asking for, and it's like a pretty common use case, this is something that I think we can prioritize. And I think me, Audie, Joseph, Harrison, maybe we can talk about who might be able to take this spot.
I will say it's really hard to come up with a generalized solution for this. The way that I was playing around with it was looking at UW ADM, so like the UW administration CLI tool, and inspecting a device and kind of seeing if there's some common property that all the dev nodes had, or a common parent. So if you could trace all the dev nodes back to one parent, you could essentially say any device with this parent should be included. But I don't know if I'm making assumptions because I'm not a UW expert. So I don't know if that only works for USB cameras or if other devices are kind of grouped in different ways. So I think this needs to be done fairly generally. So one way I was looking at doing it when I was playing around with this was adding a field to UW that essentially said grouping property, or something along the lines where someone could say that this is how we define that all these different dev nodes are the same device, and kind of generalize it that way. I can put a to-do on myself to add all these thoughts. I'm upset with myself for not having done that because I did spend a bit of time investigating it. So I'll do that. I'll add some more context to the issue so that that investigation doesn't just be left behind.
Sounds good. And then we can circle back to this. All right, thank you. And then the last one here is list and watch should only send devices when the list has changed. Harrison, do you have an update on this?
I think the pull request has been approved. It might be just version blocking it.
Yeah. Yes, the versioning.
I think there was a Clippy error before, but if that got fixed, then we can just fix the versioning and go from there. So we can close that out today.
Awesome. Cool. So I feel like we've actually closed out a decent amount of these, which is awesome. All right. So I guess now we can just sort of look at the project, the issues. Harrison, do you want to share your screen for that?
Yeah. Audie, can you give me access to screen sharing?
Eugene, I think you have to give access actually.
Okay. All right, I think you should have.
Yep. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry if this is my first time triaging, so I'll probably need you guys' help. So I guess we can start looking at the issues. Maybe start with the investigating one, or do those need to be triaged?
Are there any new cards to pull in first? I just want to make sure. If you go to, maybe you already did this. If you go to add cards in the upper right corner. Yeah, and you click that. And then you filter on type : issue. And then space is : open. And then enter. So those are two new ones. So go ahead and drag them into triage needed. And that's kind of how I like to start issue triage, because now you have everything latest and you can go to ones that haven't been acknowledged yet and then move on from there.
Okay. So this one's allowed for more generic CRDs to be deployed when device is discovered. Okay.
I can add background here. So when we first created Akri, we always kind of anticipated this being an extension of what it could do. And it looks like it's arrived. So it's kind of exciting to see. So Andrew Gracie is from SUSE. They're the ones who did the robot demo at KubeCon. And he puts together a lot of really cool demos with Akri. So definitely a great person to be throwing out new ideas. So when Akri's agent does all the work of creating Kubernetes resources to represent devices. All the controller does, the only role of the controller is to decide what that means, what to do with the fact that we've discovered a device. And the way when we started off, we said, okay, when a device is discovered, you immediately deploy a workload to use it. That was our response: is you see a device, you deploy something, is what the controller does. We always thought, okay, maybe our response isn't to just deploy a pod, maybe it's to create other types of resources. So the controller, what the controller creates in response to a device, maybe that could change. So in this example, instead of deploying a pod on discovering a device, you would deploy a new CRD. So something else, create a different type of resource. So in a summary, Andrew says, I would like to be able to control additional CRDs in addition to a broker pod. So in addition to creating a broker pod, being able to create a CRD. And reasons for this could be, maybe you have some sort of digital twin thing you're doing. So say, for example, if like there's some other operator you have that does something with the fact that you deployed a device and it has its own custom resource definition, you could see another CRD being created as being helpful because it can kick off other actions. So that's the idea of this. So it'd be a bigger feature, essentially, when you create your configuration, instead of saying broker, you would maybe say CRD as what's created. And then the controller would, well, ideally, in addition, the controller would do that. So maybe in the configuration, you would have a concept as resource to create. And the subfield of that could be choose many broker versus other resources.
Okay. Do you think we should put this one as high priority, or?
I don't know. I don't know how we prioritize. That's hard. If Andrew Gracie was like, we need this for a certain demo, like if we had an understanding of what's motivating the change for them, and it was something that could uplift Akri and a cool project, then I would say, yeah, let's work with them. Or if they had some engineers that wanted to work on it and partner with them. But unless y'all have a priority for it, I don't see a reason to make it a priority. I think it's a really cool ad, but I think we would need an explicit reason or demo for doing it.
Okay, sounds good. Adi, do you think this has something to do with like also what we're doing for like the authentication for the broken part stuff?
I could see like slight relation since we'll be like passing down credentials and like modifying the CRDs, but I don't think it's directly relevant in the sense that this is sort of like at the very end, we're just modifying more generic CRDs after we authenticate, I believe. So this is sort of like one step after the authentication's done. But yeah, I think maybe we could talk about it. And like, if we could work alongside this, that'd be really nice, I think.
Okay, I guess I can just put it to backlog for now. Okay, and the next one would be update node build flow dependency from node 12 to node 16. And this is from Ivy.
This is an issue what we caught when we were updating the pipelines a while ago. It was essentially like GitHub Actions are doing a lot of deprecations for existing tasks like node 12, and there was another note that I linked right there that just talks about other dependencies that we could update. If anyone wanted to take on like a first issue of updating the build containers and just like updating the pipelines, this is like a good start I thought of. I just added it here, but if it gets closer to that timeline and we haven't finished this, I could take it on. I wanted to leave it open to see if anyone you would want to look at it. Issue 524 had someone reach out at first. I provided a bit more context, but I haven't heard from them since. I could ping them again, but I'm not sure like what's the way I should do this.
524, is that a different one?
It's a different one. Harrison just pulled that one up. This one was, I think we just needed to update our build dependency containers for some of the tests. If you scroll down, I think 18.04 is being out of date soon, and we reference that in multiple test cases. That's about it.
Okay. I think, yeah. So, I think a quick action item is just to, I'll do it now. Just say Lunchbox, are you still interested? Just a quick follow-up on that. But I think a cool thing to do at the end of community meetings maybe is if we are able to triage, maybe at the end of triaging, we capture all of the issues that we triaged or re-reviewed that had that good first issue label and post in Slack, kind of being like, great community meeting today. Here were the good first issues that we triaged today, if anyone's interested in taking one on. And then kind of give a 4-day grace period. And if no one's claimed them, then anyone can take them, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great. I'll keep that down in the notes right now. And then after the meeting, I'll post all the good first issues.
Cool. It'd be an exciting way to engage people too.
Yeah, so I guess this one also goes to backlog for now.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that should be the new issues coming in.
Great. Thank you. Is there anything else that we want to touch on? I think that's good. Audie, is there something?
I actually just thought of something. I saw a long time ago there were pull requests. I think we had like the vulnerability scan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. It's like SNYK or SNEC. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Sneak,
but
yeah.
Sneak. Okay, yeah. I saw we used to have that, and I don't know if it's still running. Harrison and I were like looking at it for a bit, but is this something that's like that we're still using? Have we like moved elsewhere? I haven't really seen too many like pull requests or anything from it. And then I saw that Roa had a dependency bot, and then there was also like the Rust security one, but there's nothing directly from Sneak anymore.
So the Sneak bot, is it still running on PRs?
Let me take a look.
I think I saw that it still is. Let me see. Yeah, Sneak bot is still running. So it still runs. It'll only throw errors on a pull request if you add a vulnerability via your pull request. And basically what Sneak does is it sends an email update to Sneak admins saying this is what your vulnerabilities are. And I don't get those emails. I think Brian Feldstead does, and Brian Telfer. If you would like to get the emails, reach out to them maybe, or add yourself as a subscriber to them. But yeah, so that's one thing it does. There are some issues that have come out of Sneak. Like I think that's when we get to the discussion of what does Akri 1.0 mean. It means we've addressed that, in my opinion. But a lot of it is based on our samples, specifically our OPC samples, which are out of date. A lot of vulnerabilities come from that. And the other ones you mentioned, dependency bot that Roa has made, that's just a thing that we cycle through and use to update our dependencies on a regular basis. So that's always good to merge soon after it comes in. And the GitHub ones, that whole GitHub dependency bots, those came to be after we had already set up our other dependency updates. So like what Roa has. So and they kind of show up on your repo. So those are, I would say, the most important ones to address because they're kind of there like for everyone to see. And they're also kind of well known because it's a lot of GitHub's ones. So I think those are good to look at and always investigate. I don't know if we need an SLA because we're not stable yet, but to have an issue or to comment on the issues and kind of update progress. But I don't know, maybe we need a security story or an understanding about it, but those are definitely 3 ones to point out.
Cool. Yeah, I think we were just looking at it from like it existed and we had seen some pull requests from it before, but we hadn't seen anything yet. So we were just making sure that nothing was down. But yeah, thanks. We'll probably talk to anyone to see if we can get on the list or if we can sort of just have some monitoring like publicly available. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Making a public dashboard. I would maybe not recommend that until we figured out our story around our samples, because like I said, or like we said earlier, our samples being insecure doesn't mean Akri core is, because they're samples and we don't recommend you use them in production. Neither do we recommend you use Akri in production, or maybe we do, but all of our releases are stamped pre-release, which means we don't. So yeah, I think that would be my only concern about making that dashboard public, is finding a way to filter by what is Akri core so that people understand what needs to be fixed and what is not recommended to be used.
Right. I think we also previously talked about moving samples away, so we could maybe figure that out at another meeting, but we could say if we could move the samples to a separate repo, like how we have Akri docs, and then we could just have the dashboard for Akri. But yeah, that's a good idea to think about.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think now that we have our own GitHub org, it's a lot easier to make more repos and stuff like that. When we were part of Deus Labs, it was a little bit of clutter putting on them. And so now it's a little easier.
Right.
All right. Is there anything else that anyone wants to bring up or discuss? Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.